for joining. My name is Ellen Flowers Fields. I'm the Associate Vice President of Continuing Education and Workforce Development at the College of Southern Maryland. I am pinch hitting this morning for Dr. Sybil Anderson. Can everyone please mute your phones? Thank you so much.
Have a credit card?
I am pinch hitting for Dr. Sybil Anderson this morning, who's the Executive Director of Equity and Inclusion and Diversity at the College of Southern Maryland. I hope she'll be joining us shortly and able to take the torch from me. But we're having some power outage issues on CSM campus today because of those terrible storms last night. And so she's dealing with that on her end. So on behalf of the Workforce Development Regional Partners, the Tri-County Council, and the College of Southern Maryland, I am delighted to welcome you to this construction industry virtual town hall. I want to thank you all for joining us. The Tri-County Council and the College of Southern Maryland have brought us together to discuss the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on Southern Maryland's construction workforce. Today, we'll begin to develop together a coordinated workforce recovery strategy. So we're here to learn what your current needs are, your pain points, but also your successes and your lessons learned. So we can pull together a chart a way forward through this crisis for your industry. So before we get started, I'll just go over a few housekeeping items. First, a note that this morning's meeting is being recorded, and this recording will be made available publicly. It'll be sent to you in email, but it'll be publicly on the website for you to share and review. Second, as I previously mentioned, please mute your microphones to minimize background noise so everyone can hear when our panelists begin to speak this morning. And then by all means, feel free throughout the entire town hall to post comments or questions in the chat at any time during our discussions. We have chat monitors that are keeping an eye out for your comments, and we'll read them aloud for all of us. With respect to our format, we'll begin with an overview of the Getting Southern Maryland Back to Work initiative that's outlined in a white paper that you may have received and that this town hall is a part of. I'll then be joined by two panelists who will help kick off our conversations by sharing their perspective workforce recovery in the construction industry. Amy Long, who is the Human Resources Director at Chaney Enterprises, and Mike Scott, Project Manager for CMI Construction, will share their insights. During that opening conversation, please feel free to post comments and questions again in the chat area. After the opening dialogue, we'll open the floor for discussion, and that's where we'll spend most of our time because we want to hear your perspectives. And at that point, we'll also invite you to raise your hand to speak if you would like to. Our chat monitor will let you know when you should unmute yourself. So let me share what we're calling our situation report. It's a perspective on what's happening in Southern Maryland at this time. So the Getting Southern Maryland Back to Work is a collaborative initiative of the Tri-County Council and the College of Southern Maryland to prepare Southern Maryland's workforce for economic recovery, a new workplace normal. The workforce development arms of both the Council and CSM are aligning federal, state, and local investments to provide industry-recognized trainings and certifications. These investments are enabling regional partners, including you, to provide targeted responses to critical needs, equipping Southern Maryland to respond agilely to the challenge before us, which is the redefining of our workforce. You already know that the pandemic has caused unprecedented unemployment nationwide. You also know that Southern Maryland has not been immune to this impact. The Maryland Department of Labor reports that Southern Maryland unemployment has climbed to 8.4%. That was as of May of this year, up from 3.3% in just March of this year, with the greatest impact being seen in construction, along with retail and healthcare. The Getting Southern Maryland Back to Work initiative aims to create clear pathways for workers who are currently unemployed, underemployed, or in need of a career change as a result of the crisis. This initiative has three key objectives. First, investing in emerging skill needs, responding to business needs, and reshaping workforce development for the future. With respect to investing in emerging skill need, the partners recognize that the pandemic is changing the knowledge and skill requirements of workers across industries. Safety, sanitation, and remediation are now common workplace practices, and employees at all levels require training in those areas. CSM has already enhanced industry training to include COVID-19 awareness and safe worker, safe workplace protocols. The partners are also preparing for emerging occupations that require new skills and certifications. They're developing new certificate programs for infectious control, barrier protection, contract tracing proficiency, community health liaisons, and more. To fulfill the second objective, responding to business needs, the partners first and foremost are listening. Listening to businesses to set priorities to design truly successful programs. We forged alliances with the Workforce Development Board, which has representatives from our construction industry as well as other industries. The partners are also collaborating with our chambers of commerce, county economic development departments, and industry associations. We're holding town halls like this one. And by listening to businesses, we're already creating and implementing high impact trainings, including organizations seeking to upskill their current employees. Third, it is clear that we have to reshape workforce development for the future. We are being challenged to reimagine workforce development as adaptive, nimble, agile, able to respond quickly to changing needs. Getting Southern Maryland Back to Work is coordinating the efforts of stakeholders to provide critical training, capturing best practices, and also innovating and reshaping curriculum in both content and delivery modes. So that's why we're here. And now we want to engage you in a conversation to examine your specific workforce recovery needs. To begin our conversation, we're fortunate to have with us two local business leaders among leaders. Again, Amy Long, who is the Human Resources Director at Chaney Enterprises, and Mike Scott, who's the Project Manager for CMI Construction. Mike and Amy, welcome, and thank you for being here. So as I mentioned in the overview, that Southern Maryland's construction industry has not surprisingly one of the highest unemployment rates. Tell us a little about the impact of the pandemic on your employees specifically and how you're navigating during this crisis. I'll start with you, Amy.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So Chaney has always kind of positioned itself to be a company that can respond to a business model that kind of ebbs and flows with how construction works. So we were really strategically placed to respond to this situation, because what we found, and the biggest impact to our employees, was the impact to their hours. Because projects were slowing on job sites, as people were trying to figure out how do we do this whole new normal thing, we found many, particularly our drivers, who were, instead of having what we would traditionally see them having 30, 40, 50-hour weeks getting into our busy season, they were having 15, 20-hour weeks. And then the other largest impact that we saw to our employee base wasn't necessarily to them. We didn't have to do a ton of layoffs. We did have a handful. We did have some folks who did have to apply for partial unemployment because of the hourly rate. But what we were really seeing was the impact to their households, because their spouses or their partners or their roommates or somebody in their household contributing to the household income lost their job. A lot of spouses and family members in retail, in hospitality, in the restaurant businesses, that sort of thing. And so we were seeing our own employees struggle significantly with how are they going to pay their bills because, their partners had lost their employment. And some of the ways that we responded, really the biggest one was empathy. Nobody knew what was going to happen. It was a really scary time for everybody. Probably everybody who's participating in this call was kind of unsure about how this was going to impact their life. And so we tried to respond by being as flexible as we possibly could. A lot of the policies that we held in place around attendance, around being on time, around how people could use leave, all of those things went out the window. And the message that we tried to deliver to our employees is we are in this together. We're going to support you. We're going to figure it out. Our goal is to be better on the other side of this and kind of not really lose any team members along the way. So that's what we did. Like I said, with having a business that ebbs and flows anyway, Chaney had already had in place where we have kind of multiple types of leave. We have everyone has regular PTO, but we also have things called what we call PC leave. Every week our employees get a bonus and they have a choice whether they take some of those dollars and bank them as leave hours for slow times. So most of our employees have this bank of leave that they're only allowed to use when it's slow, but we also allowed them to use it if they were scared, if they had, an aging parent that they were taking care of that was high risk and they didn't want to come into the workplace because they didn't know what was going to happen. At that time, we still didn't have all of our cleaning protocols in place. We all really didn't know how the virus was going to impact people. And so we just accommodated by, hey, if you had any kind of leave in a bank somewhere, we would let you use it. And a lot of our policies around just managing stuff like that went out the window as we tried to flex with our employee base. The other thing that we were very fortunate enough to be able to do is Chaney has a philanthropic arm called the Chaney Foundation. And it is a separate entity from Chaney, and we were able to create a fund, a disaster relief fund for our employees. So if in any way COVID-19 impacted them, whether it was their employment here at Chaney or their household income, or in any way, the virus had impacted their ability to manage their lives, their bills, a crisis had come up as a result, they were able to apply for funds through the Chaney Foundation. And to date, we've awarded, I believe I just looked that up for our controller, about $60,000 through that foundation to our employees. So that was another thing that we were just fortunate enough to be able to offer because we had that resource available to us.
Wow, Amy, thank you so much. It sounds like you've certainly embraced a mantra that we state here at our organization at CSM is maximum flexibility and maximum compassion. So thank you so much for sharing that. Mike, what about CMI?
So for what we do specifically, I was actually, and that's healthcare remodeling and work in hospitals and doctors and the medical construction. What we were able to do specifically was a lot of my people I was able to keep employed. Early on, it was very challenging to adapt to every day there was a new policy in place. I didn't really have to send anybody home, but I had to implement all kinds of different, cleaning the job sites. Everybody has to have temperature checks, masks 100% of the time. It was very uncertain early on because we all kind of weren't sure if construction would get shut down as a whole. And everybody, I think, was very nervous. Everybody was very nervous about losing their jobs. What I kind of saw was very early on, everybody just went as big, they stocked the job sites as much as possible to keep everybody working just in case that there came a day where everything shuts down. CMI, during all this, we were right in the middle of a project inside St. Mary's Hospital. And I got told probably halfway through that they were going to use that area that was completely under renovation for COVID patients. So we had to take and schedule that to get that thing done as soon as possible. And in doing that, I had to actually bring guys from other job sites who they were up in DC and that region, Virginia. Those jobs, the very large jobs, did get shut down, but I was able to use those people down here locally, and like I said, in St. Mary's Hospital, because that's one specifically that we were working on. But it was just a lot of uncertainty, and what I've seen now is everybody is kind of coming back to work. We all transitioned to our office closed 100%. Everybody was working from home. I had to keep job sites. Once they weren't in the hospital, I had to keep limited the amount of people. That impacted schedules. That impacted everybody. But as a whole, I didn't have to lay anybody off, which was very, very lucky. However, my subcontractors, I have seen some of them have to do that. They cut their forces down substantially, and they're just starting to bring them back now that everything is, it seems to be improving, but who really knows? It has been very stressful getting used to all this. It's it's just totally different than anything anybody's ever been used to.
Mike, you're pointing to some very key issues that I'm hoping you can expound upon as you talk about the workforce and how things are changing. This crisis is creating new kinds of work or the need for new skills for existing workers. Do you see growth areas in construction around the new types of work or new protocols that need to occur? And if so, what are the kinds of training that you think are required?
Yeah, so we've always implemented safety training. This is just a whole new, a whole new task. I have to have people on the job sites 100% of the time, like I was saying. Every morning, everybody comes in, everybody gets their temperatures checked. I have people people that I was used to do, other tasks are now cleaning, going behind everybody and sanitizing. It's and those kinds of people that I'm using to do, they're getting way more experience doing multiple tasks as opposed to just one.
Mm-hmm. Amy, how about it at Chaney? What are your thoughts?
I would agree with Mike on a lot of the same things around cleaning and correctly taking temperatures and making decisions around that. That was actually one of the biggest challenges for Chaney, was being, having so many different sites and the OSHA requirements around how you're supposed to take temperatures or the criteria around the person who's supposed to do it. I mean, that was one of the biggest issues that we had, where we were trying to figure out how to navigate that, get everyone trained appropriately if that was the protocol that we were going to implement. And we actually, the way we managed that, because we were not comfortable with kind of the OSHA guidelines and training our folks and making sure that they were doing it correctly, because of just the breadth of our locations, is we actually started using something called a Tempadot. I don't know if anyone has seen these before, but if you've ever given blood, it's what they use, where it's a little disposable piece of paper, you put it under your tongue, has little dots, and the dots change color based on your temperature. So it's a single-use, disposable, pre-wrapped, and we make employees take their own temperatures and tell us what you got, and then we have them self-report it through our HR system. So we've kind of tried to navigate around some of those criteria as well, so we don't find ourselves in a sticky situation. But I do know, to Mike's point, we've gone to and delivered. I mean, we are a concrete supplier, so we have drivers who go to job sites and deliver concrete. We have found that a lot of those job sites, they have actually, an RN or, someone there actually taking temperatures and screening people for COVID, and talking to our employees about that, because they have to give consent. So a lot of these just little things that you have to navigate through is really interesting. So getting people, the biggest training piece that we have seen is just getting people in awareness and educated. Because, usually folks are listening to people they trust, and sometimes those sources are not always fully knowledgeable. So that may be your cousin, or it could be, your aunt's boyfriend or whatever. But, making sure that we are giving a consistent message and education around developments and as things are evolving, because it's changing still every day with, now we have to navigate schools not going back, and how are we going to accommodate our employees with that. So another big area of training and learning has been technology. You know, we are a very old school kind of industry, and particularly at Chaney, we've embraced the fact that we are family oriented, and we have never pushed technology. We are blue collar, we're proud of that. You know, our folks, they work with their hands, they don't need to know how a smartphone works, you know, yada, yada. But we've really had to push it with this. We couldn't reach our employees without technology. It was just different. So, you know, in that method of communication, we were sending out videos from our CEO. Hall Chaney would make these really creepy kind of videos on his cell phone to send out to our employees to stay connected. But we had to do it through email. We had to do it through their iPads. I had required training that had to be done. We had to do it through Zoom. And what we found is that our employees are not as inept at technology as we initially thought. Every single one of them got on those required Zoom trainings just fine. So I think what that has told us is that we should start to embrace technology. It gives us a new resource, particularly in our industry where you have, you know, a carpenter group over here working and a plumbing group over here working, and you need them to communicate, or you need to reach them all at the same time in some way. But some additional training around that and resources. We still don't use Teams because I still am not convinced everyone will remember their password. And I think our IT department will fall apart if we try to do that. So we still are mindful about the technology we use, but more technology training, I think, would go a long way too.
Amy, I really appreciate that. And that's a nice segue into my last question for both of you as a panel before we open up the discussion. And it's really around recruitment. You know, your normal has changed, and you, as you said, you're looking at how you might use technologies in the future. And I'm sure that may have some impact on your recruiting. So what do you see as the biggest recruiting challenges that you'll face in the future, and what support do you need to address it if you have that crystal ball right now?
Sure. So what we have seen, and a little bit of our concern, is construction tends to lag behind how everyone else is impacted, right? So the first things to go and close was retail, any large gathering places. Construction has a pipeline. So part of that pipeline was shut down when we were still open. Architecture, things like that, those offices were shut down as they were navigating this as well. So we have a little bit of concern that we may see a slow moving forward. And then how will that impact our employee base? But, in addition to that, we're looking at recruiting and onboarding. It's been a little bit of a challenge for really two reasons that we're believing. I don't know that I have any criteria behind this, but we are battling a little bit with some of our entry-level positions. Besides being a concrete supplier, we also have a building material supply company, Builder Up, and we have a truss plant where they build housing trusses. Wood's been very, very difficult to get. That's a whole different ball of wax, but that's an entry-level position for us. And the pay that someone gets in that role is ultimately less than the pay they would get on unemployment right now. So that's been a challenge. But also it's a little bit like online dating, I think. Right now there's such a large candidate pool because of the high unemployment rate that everybody's out there looking. So candidates have, multiple options. And what we're finding is we're either losing them in our screening process because we do background checks. We do, and sometimes that takes a little while. That's been a challenge because some employers are still not open. So to do a background check, you cannot verify employment and things like that. So our process, I think, is getting in our own way a little bit, and we're losing some candidates to that whole situation with them having so many opportunities right now with places opening back up, people wanting to hire again. So that's some of the challenges we've seen. We've kind of navigated through, since we have started onboarding, there was a freeze there for a while. We did freeze hiring for about 3 or 4 months. But during that time, we figured out how to do onboarding virtually. It's still not, I guess, we still struggle with it because it's not our culture. We want you to come in, we want to see you, we want to shake your hand, we want to give you lunch, we want to, all that sort of stuff. And you can't do that over Zoom orientation. We're doing our interviews over Zoom. So a lot of that we've just all transitioned to Zoom, but then trying to figure out how to maintain culture for those people coming in so they feel like the good old Chaney hug, cuddle, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, when they come in the door has been a little bit challenging.
Thank you. How about you, Mike?
I would expand on that and say that the same issue that I've really always had, it seems so much worse now. The entry level labor positions are the ones that I just can't fill. And like Amy was saying, the pool is so much larger now. Something that maybe I could offer, we can lose them, in the process. I've always had that issue, and to me it seems much worse right now, specifically because of all this. And to be honest, I'm not really sure what to do about that if we rebound. How that really works out. But like I said earlier, we're using our people to do multiple different activities because I just can't fill those labor positions. And we've also run into the same situation where we're kind of unsure of how it's going to, how this whole thing is going to affect the future. Obviously, in my field, commercial construction, we work with private clients who, they want to build their business or, and that's why they would come to us. And we're just not sure of what the work is going to look like, 1-2 years from now, depending on how everything turns out.
Well, thank you so very, very much for your comments and feedback. I'm hoping that the information that they shared has got the rest of our audience thinking about your own work environments, because we'd like to begin inviting everyone into the conversation. But first, we're going to take a quick poll. In the chat area, there will be a link that appears. And there are 3 questions for you. You'll see it says Construction Industry Town Hall Poll, posted by Karen Adams. 3 quick questions. We're asking our construction industry leaders to respond to the question in this poll. We want to invite you to answer questions on how we might be able to support you even further in your workforce needs. So I'll give you a minute or 2 to do that. About 30 more seconds. I want to thank you all for answering that poll. Your responses will truly help inform our next steps and engaging with you. So let's take this time to hear from you. Again, if you have questions or comments about what Amy and Mike have said, or if you want to share your experiences or ask a question or concern, feel free to speak today. You can raise your hand and our moderator will call on you to have you ask your question, or if you prefer not to speak, you can post your question in the chat. So now is your opportunity to have a conversation. And while we're waiting on those to come through, I'll ask one question of both Mike and Amy. Feel free to respond. I'm very interested in how PPE and social distancing is impacting the work sites that you currently have running.
Is this unmuted? Yes, so I can speak to that. All of our employees have to wear, like we said, we have to wear the masks. We supply them with masks, new masks every day. The gloves were not really necessary, but we have hand sanitizer stations all throughout the projects. that we ask that they hand sanitize at least once an hour. All of their regular PPE, that stuff that we require on the job sites, boots, hard hats, glasses. It just seems we've taken it a step further with the new, requirements. I mentioned earlier one of the projects we had inside the hospital. I had to keep, it was a confined space, negative pressure, so I had to keep everybody. It was 10 rooms, and I couldn't let more than 3 people in one of the rooms at a time to do the construction. So obviously, we were fighting, trying to get the project done and reduce the amount of people in one location.
Yeah, similar to Mike, I think one of the biggest things that we ran into was finding supplies. In the beginning, people were still working, and I ordered hand sanitizer. It took me like 3 months to get it. So, I mean, just finding what you needed to keep your employees safe. A good chunk of our employees are in their truck all day, so we implemented protocols that you just stayed in your truck all day, keep your air conditioning running, hang out there. That was the safest place for you. We shut down break rooms, and things like that, kept people out of managers' offices at the actual locations. We did have a little bit of an issue. The one area that we were struggling with a little bit were our retail locations where we sell the building material supplies, and trying to get those up and running and people comfortable. Like Mike, we supplied people with masks. We actually had somebody's wife on our staff. This was amazing. She sewed. I don't know if that's the correct past tense word, but she created masks for everybody within our company on the front line that needed them immediately. Our offices were working remotely for the first several months. We are back to the offices now. So actually what we did is our marketing department, these are kind of fun, these are these Gators. Mm-hmm. And people can just wear them around their necks, pull them up when they need to. And they've actually been really nice, particularly as it's gotten hotter, because the mask can be tough to breathe through. They're a little bit easier to breathe through, but still meet all the CDC requirements. So that was something that we did as well, and supplied one of those to all of our employees. But the cleaning piece, we just kind of tried to do our best to supply everybody with their own cleaning supplies and put some protocols in place. The social distancing, the hardest thing has really been at job sites when you're interacting with other organizations that aren't following the same processes and protocols you are. So in our industry, it's not uncommon for one of our drivers to get to the job site, somebody to walk up to the back of their truck and start touching things on their truck. And again, I mean, now we know that it is not as contagious on surfaces as we initially were concerned about, but at the time, our drivers were kind of freaked out. So we had to create signs to put on the back of our trucks that said, please stay 6 feet back, we will get you what you need, that sort of thing, to just alert people. And we are still dealing with some issues where we'll go to certain jobs, and the requirements on their site are not as stringent as ours. And so, we'll have our employees contact us, we'll reach out to the customer, and we'll try to navigate that the best way we can. We obviously can't dictate what other people are doing on their job sites, but we certainly want to make sure our folks still feel safe.
Thank you both for that. Rochelle?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions. First one reads, in a survey by Construction Dive, 70% of workers reported having mental health concerns because of the pandemic, anxiety and stress, etc. Are you seeing the same? And do you feel training or other kinds of support would be helpful to your employees?
This is actually a great question. Before I was the HR director here at Chaney, I'm actually also a licensed social worker. So we kind of handy in this situation, but we did see a huge rise in anxiety, panic attacks, things like that. Had some folks go out on FMLA, handed out the employee assistance program number more times than I have ever seen in my entire career here. So we definitely have seen that. We talk significantly, and I in particular have talked a lot with our employee base about normalizing some of those responses, and being empathetic to people, knowing that we are all in a different kind of situation. I have teen sons. It's just me. I don't have to worry about a 90-year-old grandmother that I go and take care of, nor do I have to worry about a newborn. So my willingness to come into an office or into a space is not going to be the same as somebody who had a newborn, a month ago. So just an understanding and an empathy around that. And we've really been trying to just prepare people that you also may respond in ways that you don't even realize. You think you're tough and strong and nothing's going to phase you. And then you walk into a job place and you start having a panic attack and you're like, what is going on? So just also preparing people that they may have responses that they did not anticipate, and just continuously communicating is really kind of how we're handling it.
Mike, how about you?
I'd say exactly the same. We've had the same situation with multiple employees, have to take some time, even just a couple days here or there, just to kind of regroup, myself included, when all this kind of happened, because it was very nerve-wracking, a lot of anxiety, and I think a lot of people can still continue to feel that because everything's, so uncertain with how we move forward. But we've been very supportive, and I would agree that, training or, I think even just to talk to somebody sometimes is very important. So we always have our doors open. I mean, now, especially now that we're back in the office. But I mean, any of my folks know they can call me anytime, even if they just want to chat, just want to say, hey, or hey, I'm going to take a couple hours here or there just to go regroup. I think is very important.
Just to add to what Mike was saying, because I think he makes a very valid point, is sometimes also leaders need to recognize that they need a break here and there as well. They're oftentimes in a situation where they think they're kind of the last ditch, and they need to always be available, always have the answer, always. But if you're not able to answer your employees' questions or support them, they're just not going to be supported. And also recognizing that for other people. If you see someone needs a break, sometimes it takes a little encouragement and making sure that they go get it.
Absolutely. Rochelle, any other questions?
Yes, there's another one. Are there training needs outside of the safety sanitation? Are there workforce needs for new hires as well?
I haven't seen different types of jobs created, at least in our company, for this. What I've seen is trying to figure out how to adapt the jobs that we're doing and how to do them differently, to minimize contact between people. One of the biggest challenges we're up against right now is we are finally starting to hire new drivers on board, and all of our driving training is in cab, where one of our more senior drivers are teaching someone else. And how do we get people, comfortable with that idea? And yeah, just how do we do it? It's been challenging. No one on our team wants to do it, but we need those drivers. So how do we make it as safe as possible? And we have implemented a couple of things. We are now going to do pre-hire testing for COVID for drivers, so that we can at least safely tell the person training, hey, we're testing all new drivers coming in. We have talked about possibly putting up some sort of sneeze guard modified for the truck, but that creates safety issues. Then how do we navigate around that? So we are, just offering as many tools. I think at this point, we are going to implement some processes around trying to keep the windows open for circulation, wearing masks, but also offering our drivers the ones that people can wear that are sneeze guards, just kind of on your face instead of trying to put up a barrier, and letting them choose where they feel most comfortable in terms of their risk level. We'll have some baseline things that have to happen for safety, and then offering them additional PPE to make them feel safe. But training, interacting with people outside of the workplace, those are the types of things that we've needed to see accommodations for, but not necessarily new roles.
Yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't really have anything to add, but I would agree with that. Like I mentioned earlier, what I've always kind of needed is labor, and I'm still having an issue with that. And I think, like you said, some of the younger guys or positions right now, the lower positions, the level stuff right now, I mean, it's realistically that you can make more money on unemployment. So that is an issue.
I see that we have audience members concurring that they're having similar experiences to both you and Amy. Any industry leader on the town hall that has a unique experience that or a challenge that you're facing that you'd like to share? Okay, Rochelle, are there other questions?
You already kind of alluded to that one. Someone was curious to know if others on the call were experiencing what they were experiencing and if they're having the same experiences. We also have another one coming in now, parts being unavailable or delayed to repair equipment. Are you seeing that?
Yes, the supply chain as a whole for materials that we would typically use in a renovation project or a new project, it changes on a daily basis. Sometimes it's within the hour. I have experienced multiple different trades, material for different trades having substitutions. I'm actually waiting for some lights right now that I'm still unable to get, and it's been about 3 months. So we've had to kind of pivot, like I said, on a daily and hourly basis to change things. It's very, very difficult, and those kinds of issues, it seems to me, comes from the COVID issues. Factories have shut down all over the country. They shut down for a period of time, and that sets everything back.
We have another question. How challenging is it to balance empathy and performance?
This is a good one. Because we're running back up against that. It was pretty easy in the beginning because nobody knew what was going on. So it was easy to be flexible one way to feel like you were supporting people. And now we are coming up against, we've had a couple of people, most of our employee base have been very grateful for our flexibility and support, and have responded in kind, and continue to work at the same level, continue to follow our policies generally, or as we have them implemented right now. We do have a handful of people who are starting to kind of abuse the flexibility that we have been offering. And in those situations, we're having one-on-one conversations with those folks to say, it's really becoming evident to us that perhaps you're stretching the boundaries of the flexibility that we're offering. But we're not really seeing that globally throughout the company. Most people have been very grateful. Most people's situations are truly what they are, and our accommodations make sense. But sometimes you just have to drop the hammer and say, okay, enough's enough. It's now impacting the people around you and your team because you're abusing the accommodations.
We have another here. Do you have a plan going forward as it's being reported that we may have another lockdown in November?
No.
That's the first I've heard of that. No.
We're gonna kind of wing it like we did the first. No, I mean, I think everyone's better situated. If we go through another lockdown, you're not gonna have as much to figure out. I think we have all figured out probably more than we ever thought we had to figure out in a 3-month period, right? It was like drinking from a fire hose. But no, I mean, I think the biggest challenge there will be now that we have figured out how to operate with everything, with schools being shut down, how do we now work with parents who have children that they can't just leave at home to navigate that process by themselves? And that's really, I mean, at least what I'm experiencing, my children are in the Anne Arundel County school system, but all of the surrounding counties are also, everyone's pretty much closed until after the second quarter. So that takes us to February, essentially. And so then how do we work with our employee base through all of that?
All right. Mike, no comment on that?
I haven't heard that there'd be another lockdown, but like the same thing she said, I think we'll take the skills that we learned the first time and apply them to the second time.
Good response. Another question, as Calvert and surrounding counties are closer to implementing online learning for K through 12, what are other companies doing? What are other companies discussing, as alternative methods to having employees that are affected that are affected work from home. I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi is going in and out.
And alternative hours and weekends, et cetera.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
My
to
Wi-Fi is
help make up the work week.
Thank you. That's the
Mhm.
question.
Yes.
Well, I just told all of y'all I don't know what I'm doing. So why don't you all tell me what you're doing?
Yeah, I know a lot of us kind of work from home anyway, and when we get the opportunity to do so, and I know that here my leadership is being very open to if they need to, then they can. Obviously, we all understand that people have kids, and it's going to be a challenge if everybody's at home 100% of the time now.
This is great. It certainly sounds like there's again, maximum flexibility being allotted for individuals who may, because children are home and need support, attending online school during the week, may be more productive doing work on the weekends. And if their role allows, it sounds like that's the type of thing that you would let them do. I know that's probably a little more difficult for those that have to be on the on-job sites. Amy, I did see a question that went up earlier. Someone was asking about who did the logos on the Chaney Gators.
We have a rock star marketing team. We have 3 people internally on our marketing team. So they crafted them, they found the supplier, got them made up, and we actually had them made. I wish I had my builder up one here because it's super cute. I know that for all the guys on the call, they don't care about that, but I love it. His little doors and windows on it. Yeah, but it was our marketing department who made them up.
Wonderful. Thank you.
We have another question. Once the additional unemployment money runs out, what is the plan for the college and workforce agencies to reach those individuals that start looking for employment?
Great question. Pam, do you want to start talking about what you're doing there with the American Job Center? And I can just briefly mention the college.
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. What we are currently doing with the workforce through Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland, our very capable career counseling staff, we are currently having online orientations every Tuesday. We have job clubs. Job clubs really is an opportunity to engage our current participants that are already in our Title I programs. And for those who are coming wanting to know more about our programs, the monies that we get from the federal government by way of the state of Maryland is to ensure that participants are more educable and employable. And so with that, we have the opportunity, particularly in this partnership with the College of Southern Maryland, to look at their skills gaps and to be able to provide them, those who are eligible for our program, to get upskilled in order to make them more marketable to get back into the workforce. And so we are really opening opportunities now that we have online enrollments for those who are eligible, and they would go through that vetting process to just kind of get people in the hopper, to get them training. That's why I asked the question, are there any other training needs besides safety and sanitation, although I believe the college is really looking at those needs and providing those training opportunities as well. But, not to forget that we have CDL training, we have all of the construction and trades opportunities, and we pay 100% of that for eligible participants. So there are a lot of opportunities. This is a way, this town hall is an opportunity for us to reach out into the community, to use these opportunities as the tentacles to get out there and touch you all in the industry to let us know what your business needs are. Now we take our participants, and this is a hub where we have our people meeting our employers. And so we are kind of like that that go between, if you will, we're the speed dating group that makes it all happen. And so that's what we're doing. We are looking at the monies that we have to put people in training with the phenomenal opportunities that one of our main partners, of course, College of Southern Maryland, through this collaboration, as they expand their ability to train online, this is the time. In terms of their continuing education and workforce area, 85% of the training is online. And so this is a great opportunity for businesses to let us know what your needs are.
Yes, Pam, thank you. I'll just add to that in saying Pam mentioned about the eligibility for the federal workforce program. Basically, unemployed individuals are eligible. So I think the question, we talked about unemployment, there's some certain caveats for people who may have a total household incomes that are over a certain threshold. But in these crises, really, the lion's share of unemployed individuals, Pam and the Workforce Board, they're reaching out to the community. I see notices every week, and they're working with community partners, advising people that the services are there to help them re-engage to the workforce. At the college, as Pam talked about, we've restructured our program delivery so that the majority of our content can be made available online, and so that we minimize face-to-face interaction. Where only hands-on demonstration is required, and we can maintain some social distancing on our campuses. So we've allowed that maximum flexibility for people who want to obtain education. And we've added additional modules into our traditional industry training that includes safety and sanitation protocols. So anyone going through, whether they're taking to become a CNA, GNA, or they're taking a classes to become an HVAC tech or an electrician, there are modules in there around safety and sanitation, safe worker, safe workplace protocols, because we know those skills are going to be new skills needed in the environment. So we've had those enhancements, but in addition, we've created online modules that are very specific to COVID and contract tracing and maintaining a safe workplace environment, that someone who's already has an industry certification can just come and take those modules by, as a standalone. And those are also available online. So we're really working to provide the type of instruction that's needed to help individuals who are unemployed get the skills upgrade training that they need so that they're marketable within your industry and your field. So our inquiry is in terms of what do they need is really helping to shape to inform any additional training that we might create or enhance to meet this industry need. So your feedback is invaluable.
We have another question. Has CSM
We got time
discussed?
for one more.
Okay. Has CSM discussed opportunities for students enrolled in the teacher education program to advertise or provide online small group, our individual supplementary individual supplementary tutoring or instruction to the local schools?
Oh, that is an excellent question. We are in many conversations with the superintendents of each of the county boards of education about how we can support their new normal. And their new normal is they're just making the commitments in terms of what fall is going to look like. And we've been having these discussions for a number of months. So we're engaged with them in a number of ways. First is really how we could this summer provide some online instruction to help students who might not have gained all the competencies or missed that Q4 competencies and may have been struggling and needed some academic learning and support, so that they're not the gap is not so wide when they return to school in the fall. So this summer we had several classes, various math classes, and English classes, computer classes, but primarily math and English, to help students so we could bridge that gap. So that was the first strategy we implemented in working with them. The second that we're working on is some teacher training, so that teachers learning to teach in the online environment. It's very different. For those of you who had young children in the K through 12 system, they didn't really teach that last quarter. They more connected with students and gave them activities and was there to answer questions, but they weren't teaching new lessons and new curriculum. That's going to be very different in the fall. And so online teaching takes different pedagogy, and we're supporting them and helping those teachers to learn how to teach in an online environment. Interesting, the question is very specific to whether or not we're engaging the teacher education program to help these students. Not specifically, but we are engaged in conversations as to how parents might have a need for in-home childcare or supervision support to help those children. And, you know, whether it's so that while they're working, the kids have activities, and that can include some basic instruction. So we are having conversations about what that labor force might look like. As we examine it, it is a very, it would be a low wage income. So it wouldn't be, it may be something supplemental for someone. The teachers themselves that we're training are in high demand to be in the classroom. Charles County, St. Mary's County, and Calvert County were experiencing teacher shortages prior to this pandemic. This has exacerbated that need. So the need for teachers going through the teacher program will be very specific to the classrooms. I apologize if we did not have an opportunity to get to all the questions, if we've missed any, but as we're coming near to 9:30, I do want to thank you all for this wonderful conversation. What you've contributed is truly valuable, and these insights and information are helping to equip and inform us to make strategic decisions as we move forward to support the construction workforce. And so now I'm just going to hand it over to Ruthie Davis, who's the workforce director for the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland. She's going to close us out.
Thank you, Ellen. And I wanted to especially thank everyone that took the time to join us this morning. Your insights are valuable. They are going to inform the next steps. I want to thank Amy and Mike for being our champions, our panel members this morning. Thank you very much. You will be hearing from this initiative, Getting Southern Maryland Back to Work, within about a week to talk about some next steps. And we hope that you will be engaging in a town hall quarterly. We'll take a look at the poll results and we'll respond to those as well. So thank you all. Have a good rest of your day, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone.